Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sim Experience South Africa. You are watching the MX5s on a Sunday evening, and we are looking at Div 2 here at Tor Poznan. And there's probably a much better way of pronouncing it, but we are at a Polish track, something that we've not really done in the past, to be honest. For those on the YouTube channel, welcome to everyone. I can see we've got a regular there, Cleopas, of course, shouting for SRAC. Some other SRAC supporters as well. The Andre Dippenaar, welcome to you. And then we've got the official YouTube channel of SRAC also saying hi. And then Dennis Mitchell from Hacktor Computer Services also saying good luck to everyone, make it a good one. Poznan Gaming also shouting for SRAC. So welcome to all of you, and looking forward to an absolutely lovely evening. For now, our drivers are starting to head out on the track, so we're just waiting for everyone to kind of get settled into their positions for qualifying. It's about a 1 minute 40 seconds lap, maybe longer. So at the moment, everyone's kind of still a bit spread out. Sean Willoughby first to come across the line, and he is going to start with his first flying lap. So we'll jump on board with him and have a little bit of a look. So you've got this nice long right-hander for the circuit, and then a little bit of a shimmy. It's in a rather heavy braking zone into what is possibly a very good overtaking opportunity. This track does fit F1 cars if you do some hot lapping around here, so it is going to be quite interesting. Then slight right-hander with these cars, it's going to be fairly flat, so there is a very clear rhythm to this track that drivers are going to have to pick up with the MX5s. Otherwise they are going to struggle with them a little bit, keeping up that momentum. The track is built on an old airbase, built in 1977. If I remember correctly, Bernie Ecclestone, of all people, actually advised in its creation. So a rather interesting one. We've had some legends lap around here as well. Can't really find the information now, but I think Michael Schumacher has definitely done a lap around here, some demonstration, and Jackie Stewart, of all people, also going around here. Considering the age of the track, definitely not too much of a surprise. And then at the end of this lap, nice sweeping right-hander. Try and carry the speed in there as fast as possible. That's going to do a bit of damage to your tires, but it's going to be interesting to see whether people are going to try and overtake on there. So nice, neat little lap there from Sean Willoughby. I was so keen to get into the action that I actually forgot we've got standings. So looking at the championship standings, and this is combined Div 1 and 2, we've got Dylan Versaghi out in front with a 1,252. Close behind is Dennis Mitchell, then followed by Peter Grobler, James Leach Jr., Tom Leary Moss, Ian Upton, Richard van Heerderen, Melvin de Goos, James Crook, Michael Rust, Donnie van Rooyen, Stephen Castellan. So those are most of the Div 1 drivers. Then we've got Robert Franco, Sean Johnson, Timo Smit, Herman Nieuwoud, Alistair Barnard, Rian van Westhuizen, Craig Wesley. Gijsbert Attinagel sitting at the 20 mark with 623 points. He is here in the Div 2 tonight. Then we've got Marius van Wyk, André Hildebrand, Tian Marais, Eric Leitwanger, Sean Willoughby, who's actually on screen at the moment. Then Peter Galneys, James Leach Sr., Steven Sparks, Ross Heman, Danny Sander, René Leach, Matt Williams, Hilke Wierenga, Keen Goos, Gabi Goos, and then Willem Stein. Position 37, John Baton, Sean Webber, Dennis Knutse, Basil van Rijn, Dean van Wyk, Stuart Mack, Dave Brady, and Nico Smit. So now looking at the track map, you can see it on the right hand side as well. Established, I was offered by a few years, 1975. 4.083 kilometers, so not too short of a track. And as I said, this can accommodate an F1 car, so it's quite big for the MX-5s, not in terms of width, but in terms of the corner radiuses and the straights that you have available. In terms of the corner names, we actually have none. It's just numbered, so it's going to be a bit of a tricky evening, all things considered. Weather-wise, if we can get the thing to display, that's a bit... Oh, there we go. So 22 degrees Celsius in the air, 36 degrees Celsius on the track, so it's actually just nice cool conditions for racing, clear skies as you can see, so it's going to be fairly good. So back to action. The action. Well, if you're doing a 145.979, Gijsbert Adnagel closest with a 146.589, and I'm wondering whether that might be that last corner. We saw Olivier taking the thing completely flat, and that looked like something that was on the absolute limits of the car. So some of these drivers might not be considering that they can go all out there. Donnie Stander then with a 149.282, also fairly respectable. Leach Senior 150.295. Jaco van Niekerk jumping into third position with a 149.069, so just getting past Donnie Stander. And then we've got Andre Hildebrand in 150.671. Still possible improvements that can be made. Jaco van Niekerk up on his delta, finding a ton of time, so he's not even gotten the fastest lap done that he has available yet, so he can still separate himself a little bit more from Donnie Stander. In terms of the field, it's a bit of a small one for Div 2. You're always going to see this thinning of the field as the season continues, and we're very close to the end of our season. This is the third last race. Next up, we'll be having Red Bull Ring, and then rounding off our 10 rounds of MX5s with Sebring. So it's always going to be an interesting one, that last track right there. Also Red Bull Ring, I think with MX5s it's going to be a bit of a different experience than we used to with the high downforce cars. Qualifying getting close to its end, and Sean Olivier clearly dividing himself from the rest of the pack. The only one that seems to have the pace to possibly challenge him during the race is going to be Gijsbert Adnagel. Well, if you're kind of doing Div 1 times here in Div 2, so he is going to be a clear favorite. Last time round, while we were running, we had Sean Johnson taking wins on both the first and the second race, and then Gijsbert Adnagel taking second position in the first race and third position in the second race. Second race, of course, being the reverse grid one, so it's a bit more difficult to get up to the top right there. So 40 seconds left, and we'll start seeing some of the drivers really settling into their positions. I don't think we're going to get any other surprises, although Leach Senior into the 148s. I think he's going to be very happy with that. That's going to put him in a very solid position. Then everyone else still struggling a little bit. We do have Hilke Verenga jumping into 7th position, and just again a big shout out to Hilke Verenga. He's the man behind the Alwyn sponsor that you can see on the hoods of the cars. So he's right here, and then on the hood there you can see his company right there. So He's been sponsoring us from the V8 series onwards, so he's been with us for a very, very long time, and he's made these broadcasts possible. As much as I would like to do everything for free, I do have some additional internet costs to pay, so he helps out a little bit with that and just helps us keep everything on a much higher standard. The video work that you can also see is also being paid for by him. And especially for the MX5 series, it's really elevated the series from just a simple get-together to something that's an event that we can really look forward to. So, settling into our positions for qualifying, Hilke Weringa, last driver to go around the track. Sean Olivier with a 1:45.979. Then we've got Gijsbert Attinagel in second position, Leach Senior third, Van Niekerk fourth, Stander 5th, Hildebrand 6th, and Weringa in 7th position. So you can expect a nice battle developing between Leach Senior, Van Niekerk, Stander, and Hildebrand. Weringa also possibly getting into the mix if he can keep everything nice and clean. And then Olivier and Attinagel will be battling one another there out at the front. And giving us a little bit of action there. Later tonight we've got the Div 1 race, so they start their qualifying, I think 8:10. It varies a little bit depending on how things go with the Div 2 race. I'm going to send you to a quick ad break, and then we'll be right back with the race itself. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are on the grid with the drivers, and it is going to be a fun one. We've had some drivers sneak in right at the end of qualifying, not with valid times, but they are on the grid. So we've got Harvey Goos, Keen, and Keen Goos sat at the back of the grid. So it's going to be very interesting indeed. So everyone's set up for a good start, and we'll just wait for the race director to bring up the lights. Lights are up, and we are ready to get going. He's making us wait quite a little bit. So 6 lights are up, and we are off. So a massive start for Sean Olivier. Gijsbert really struggling to get off the line. Down in the back, I think there's Daniel Stander and Andre Hildebrand getting a very, very good start. We're running 3 wide into the first corner here. And it's going to be interesting to see who backs out. Hildebrand, the big winner there from that start, up into 3rd place ahead of Leach Senior. Jaco also getting there in the mix, right on the rear of Hildebrand. Now, unfortunately, I think we might have lost one of the drivers there off the grid. Neck and neck, Jaco van die Kerk still battling it out there, and now stuck there on the rear of Hildebrand in front of him. Out in front, Sean Olivier has already got himself a 1.5 second gap to the field behind him, so he's just took off like an absolute rocket, and we'll be seeing him head down the track. Atinagel in a little bit of a no man's land, and Andre Hildebrand, massive start for him, as he's now leading a bit of a gaggle of cars behind him, with Van Niekerk and Leach Senior there behind him. Further down the field, Hilke Verengaard just tailing them, staying with them, and unfortunately I think some cars that fell back during the start. Keen Goos, you can see there, still in the 2nd sector of the grid. Harvey Goos behind him, and even further back, Dani Stander making the back of the field. Sean Olivier just absolutely flying here at the front. Oh, and Van Niekerk, we've just caught that. He was busy with an overtake there, and he's just took off. That must have been due to contact. Hildebrand and Leach Senior still continuing the battle down the main straight. Hildebrand is going to tuck behind Leach, then look towards the inside. Is he going to have the overlap to be able to execute that move? They are side by side. Hildebrand is pulling very close to the side, and unfortunately there's contact between the drivers. Hildebrand spinning out, and Leach is continuing on. Verengaard getting past him as everyone gets along. Keen Goos making his way up into the pack, 7th position. And he's going to be battling his way around. He's going to have Andre Hildebrand up ahead of him. He's now gotten back onto the track, and Keen is going to make the drive around him. We've had a bit of an incident on the front. Olivier seems to have made a mistake. You can see him heading very, very slowly. Gijsbert Atinagel taking the lead. Not exactly sure what happened to Olivier there, but Ati now in a bit of a more fortuitous position for the rest of the race. Further down, Hilke Verengaard holding on to that 4th position. Had a little bit of contact there with Leach Senior, but that's not going to sway him too much. So he's going to continue with his race. He's got a massive gap behind him to Van Niekerk, and that is James Leach Senior doing a little bit of rallying here in Poland, and that's cost him the position. So Verengaard utilizing some consistency to get past his opponent. Sean Olivier trying to make up for his mistakes. He had a rather poor 2nd sector. Gijsbert Atinagel setting a very, very solid lap. 146. Quite the lap to contend with there. Olivier not near that yet. So they are going to charge ahead. 148 for Van Niekerk and Goos. Post already up into 6th position. And Leach Senior now looking at the rear of Berenga. Berenga assuming the racing line. And that is a very, very slow exit, so Leach is going to stroll on past there. And Berenga is going to tuck behind. Although he is struggling with the control of his car at the moment, so he spun off into the grass, and that's going to cost him quite a few positions. Jacob van Niekerk now moving up into 4th, thanks to the mistake from Berenga there, and he's going to continue down the line. Out in front, Jesper Atinagel now getting close, or Willefear is getting closer to him to some small extent. And 1.4 seconds separating them, so Ati does have the upper hand at the moment, and I'm wondering whether Willefear is just trying to get some consistent laps in, build up the confidence, and see how close he can get to him. We've had a swap in position, so Van Niekerk and Goos getting past Leach Senior. I think he might have slid off the track there, and you can see him waiting to safely rejoin. Although rejoining near the apex is going to be a bit of a tricky one. And that might have scared Berenga and Hildebrand a little bit as Leach got back onto the track. So he's now going to have a bit of a battle on his hands if he can quickly build up his confidence again and see if he can chase down Hildebrand, and he's going to be fighting his way back up the pack. So it's a bit of a tricky corner. There is Hildebrand making a mistake there, nearly sliding off the track. He's done very well to keep control of the car, and that's let Leach Senior on through. And this track just seems like a very, very tricky one. On in front, we've had a bit of a mistake from Atinagel. You can see him very, very slow out of that last corner, and that's given Willefear a massive gap to get on through. So we might have tried to speak about ideal overtaking zones, but this track has come down to more a case of who's going to be a bit more consistent, who's going to be able to keep the car in control through the turns, because the track is in one of those uncomfortable in-betweens for this car, because it's got the corners for some bigger cars, but because you're trying to carry as much speed and you're only relying on mechanical downforce, it's so easy to overpower these tires on the cars. So you can just see the rears really coming out on the cars as they drive through the corners. Down. It's almost like the start-finish straight as a preceding straight that's just connected by a flat-out turn. So it's almost like it's got a bigger straight than it leads on to kind of be honest. And then heading into this first corner, this big open right-hander is not really giving the drivers too much grief. But then it's this second sector of the track, specifically that bottom section that kind of sticks out like that, and gives them a lot of grief. So Kiengoos up into 4th position, doing a superb job of driving through the field, and he's done a superb job for himself there. Leach Senior and Hilke Berenga side by side into one of the trickier sections of the track. Leach getting the drive on past him, and he's going to start charging ahead to the rest of the pack. Further behind him, Berenga and Hildebrand both in a battle. Veronica making a mistake on the apex of the corner. That's promoted Hildebrand on through. Hildebrand getting acquainted with the curb there and nearly sending himself for another rally stage off to the side of the track. At the front, Sean Olivier opening up the gap now with 6.1 seconds. So I see, unfortunately, hurting his confidence a little bit. And the race proving to be a tricky one. Donny Stander looking at the back of Veronica here. It's a bit more action here at the back of the pack as they pile on through to the first corner. Stander just getting a nice little draft from the car in front of him. And it's all going to be about who makes the first mistake. Off into the woods they go, or behind the woods they go. Stander just poking in his nose towards the inside a little bit, preparing himself to jump out if he needs to. Veronica running a defensive line. Stander getting held up, and that's Veronica into the gravel trap. I don't know if there was contact. The rear of the car looks a bit worse for wear, and Stander has waited for him. So we might have seen a little bit of an issue with some net code. Veronica yet again off the track, so a bit of a rough one for him. Hildebrand up the track, doing the best that he can to kind of keep closer to Leach Senior. They can hear in the foreground. And now 1.8 seconds separating them. Back to the Veronica and Stander fight. Stander now close to the rear of Veronica, and he's going to look for another opportunity to make a clean overtake. You can see him just getting the car onto the apex of the corner there, keeping it nice and neat. And thankfully with this track, it's a bit higher quality than we normally have with some of the tracks. Donny Stander thinking about a bit of a rally overtake there. That wasn't going to work out in his favor. But yeah, higher quality track, this one. Actually a laser scan mod track. So this is going to be... Oh, and that is a bit of an interesting moment. So Veronica and Stander with a synchronous spin. Veronica almost into the pits. I don't know how he's going to get out of this one. He might just have to pit, which is a bit unfortunate. So Halvigo's now moving up into 7th place with a substantial gap behind him, so he just needs to keep it consistent. Some shenanigans there on the main straight. It's a bit of a difficult one if you slide into the pits like that, because if you leave, you're now leaving in an unsafe manner, and you're going to get a penalty for it. So you can't really just dive out. So you've essentially given yourself a drive-through penalty with that mistake. Well, if you're now 7 laps into the race with the fastest lap, and a lap time of 1:45.783, so very quick, almost a second quicker than Jesper Atinagel on his previous lap, and just doing an absolute superb job. Some action yet again for James Leach Senior and Hildebrand. Hildebrand getting off through that corner, now down the back straight. And you can see he's having to lift a little bit. He's not as confident to go full beans into that corner. And you're going to see Leach Jr. getting an opportunity to overtake here, as he's kept the throttle pinned through that corner. And he's going to get that overtake done and dusted by the end of the straight. And that's the comfortable way in which you want to do that. But Hildebrand is going to stick with him. And there's always the chance of a mistake out here on Toro Poznan. Stander goes still in a battle between the two of them. And they, in the background, you can see Veronica. So Stander and Virenga both recovering from their synchronous spin. Now working their way up the pack. Also have a battle playing out in front of them, but that is 21 seconds up the road. And some slow corner exits there. It's tricky with this car because if you overslow the car, it is going to take forever to get back up to speed. Leach Senior and Hildebrand getting promoted, so that is, I think it might have been Keen Goos that dropped backwards a little bit, and that's sounds like a mistake from someone, and indeed that was Goos going off the track a little bit. Another rally driver there, or rally drive there from Leach Senior. I think that's going to be Hildebrand getting past him and Goos. So these three are in a nice heated little battle. Goos fancying a look at the rear of Hildebrand. Hildebrand trying to break the toe, but it's going to be a train of cars. And that's going to be Leach Senior heading towards the outside of the track. And he's going to try and drive the momentum through the outside. And he's going to lose out a little bit, go for the switchback. But Hildebrand and Goos are running in front of him. So Hildebrand leading this ragtag little group of people. Everyone just sat there on the rear of his car. It is so close. I mean, imagine that sight in your mirrors. It's going to be truly distracting. It almost looks like some chase scene out of a movie. Almost like Hildebrand stole some jewelry and is trying to get away from the cops. And Goos and Leach Senior doing their absolute best to catch him. Goos having to avoid the rear of him, and a bit of a concertina effect as both drivers brake. Unfortunately, Leach getting pushed onto the grass there. He's going to brake a little bit and rejoin the track. And Hildebrand just doing his absolute best, holding on for dear life here in position 4. Keen Goos now in the thick of things, and he's just having an absolute ball of a time. We really need to contact the gardener about that tree right there, but it's not going to bother these guys. Keen Goos running in his father's livery there with the Melbourne on the number plate. They've started to drop Leach Senior a little bit, so maybe just a little bit of a rough lap there for James Leach Senior. Sean Willifer on a purple first sector, so just doing an absolute stellar job there out in front. Goos now diving out in front, getting a nice little drive there down the main straight. Hildebrand is going to get back in front of him. They're going to be side by side. Keen on the inside, and now he's going to have the outside line to contend with. A little bit of a bump between the drivers, no harm, no foul. They've kept their places, and they've looked like Keen backed out a little bit. Hildebrand very restricted there on the inside line. He's going to have to drop behind Leach Senior there and continue onwards. Leach Senior is stuck there to the behind of Goos' car, and he is going to try and come up the inside and position himself for the outside of the turn. Goos very restricted there, close to the apex of that little kink in the road, and he's now going to be stuck between Leach Senior and Hildebrand. Hildebrand doing a superb job of keeping up with the pack, and these three are probably having the most fun of all the drivers on track at the moment. Even though Willifer is running away with this race at 7 seconds ahead, he's having a bit of a lonely one. Hildebrand just sticking to the rear of Keen Goos there, looking for a move on the inside, thinking better of it, just piling on the pressure on the young driver in front of him. And their battle is giving Leach Senior a little bit of breathing room. So Leach is doing his utmost best to capitalize on the fight behind him, trying to open up that gap. And just hoping that these two drivers don't realize that they're starting to fall behind a little bit. Close finding the bumps on the outside of the track. Hildebrandt poking his nose on the inside. Still continuing in the draft there of Goos. And Bernga is registered as going into the pits. I'm not exactly sure what happened there. You shouldn't really be pitting in this race. So he might be having some trouble with that last corner. I'm not entirely sure. Goos realizing that his battle with Hildebrandt is keeping him up a little bit, and he's found a little bit of extra pace, maybe a little bit of extra risk, and he's going to chase down Leach Senior before he goes off into the horizon. One of the drivers that's had a very, very lonely race is this gentleman right here, Jaco van Niekerk, in a very solid third position. 47 seconds down from Atinagel and 18 seconds ahead of Leach Senior. So he just needs to complete the race. So we're very, very close to taking the white flag. We're just waiting for Sean Olivier to come across the line, and we're going to have our last lap for the first race. Goes now on the rear of Leach Senior, so they're going to have a small extra amount of time to continue with this battle of theirs. Just keeping an eye. Will it be rounding the corner before that back straight? So we'll keep an eye on when he crosses the line in front of him. But the battle we're going to have for the end of the race is going to be between Leach Senior and Goos. Bernga is still in the pits, so he must be experiencing some equipment trouble and has had to pull out of this specific race. Goos nearly dipping a wheel into the gravel there, and that's really what's been causing some trouble for some of the drivers. Some odd bumps here and there, and almost giving us a nice little drift there, keeping the car under the control on the exit of the corner, but Hildebrandt has caught up a little bit. We're on the final lap. And Willifear is behind the group, behind this group of cars. So I suspect they might actually be finishing before him. I can't exactly remember how it works with traffic that's almost been lapped. Goos having a little bit of a drift there, just hanging out the rear. Going to correct quite violently. That's a good save there for that tank slapper. Just backing out of the throttle a little bit, getting the car in line again and continuing onwards. And taking a very, very wide line. I think his attention might have been elsewhere. So they still need to go around another turn. And Hildebrandt getting past him. So I think Goos might have backed out. He's just here for the racing. He doesn't want to have too big of an impact on the championship. And that is one massive drift from Hildebrandt as he goes around the first corner, just keeping the car pointed as throughout the entirety of the turn. Olivier taking first position, and then Atinagel coming across the line in second. So well-deserved first there for Olivier, and then for Atinagel. Van Niekerk still making his way around the track, and you can just see the gap between the field there. Javi Goos coming home in 8th position, and Bernga is going to be in 9th, of course. So we're just keeping an eye on Van Niekerk as he finishes it up. So he's going to come home in 3rd position if he keeps everything under control quite nicely. And down the back straight he goes. looking to wrap up with his race right here. So he's finished up his race, and Leach Senior, after having one hell of a battle in the closing stages of the race, is going to come home in 4th. So he's done especially well for his racing prospect, and Hildebrandt in 5th, a very hard fought for position, having some rather fun looking drifts along the way. But if you are in the race itself, I don't think they might seem that fun at that specific stage. And then Thunder behind him, and Ghost just wants to cross the line so that we can get into the next session, but he's going to take 7th position. So that's going to do it for race number 1. We're going to have a reverse grid for the next race, so we can have Berenga set out in front. If his equipment troubles have been sorted out, then Harvey Goos and Keen Goos, and then behind them Dani Stander, André Hildebrandt, James Leach Sr., Jaco van Niekerk, Gijsbert Attinagel, and Sean Willefeer. I'm going to send you to a quick ad break while we get everything ready for the second race, and then we will be back with you shortly. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are getting ready on the grid. The drivers are revving their engines, but we're still waiting on the race director to give us the green light to go. And everyone set and ready. So 6 lights out, we are prepping for the reverse grid race, and lights are going off. So all the lights on, lights out, and we are off. A little bit of a poor start there for what looks to be Donnie's Thunder. And they are going to rush down towards the front of the straight. Andre Hildebrand leading us into the first turn. Dying Thunder right next to him, and behind him James Leach Sr. already into third position. We're going to come around the corner. On the inside, we're going to have James Leach Sr. Oh, and unfortunately, two drivers coming together. That's Andre Hildebrand and James Leach Sr., I think. No, apologies. Yeah, Hildebrand and Leach Sr. Thunder then in a battle with Sean Olivier, and Olivier already out into first place. And that's Kiengoos right behind him, braking hard to avoid some contact. Rest of the field getting along slightly with a bit of a rough start, but we've gotten going. So out and back, Leach Senior is going to be feeling a little bit hard done by, and he's going to be on one hell of a drive back for the rest of the race. So the battle here between Donny Thunder and Kiengoos is heating up quite a bit. Keen almost going off track to open up the corner for himself. That is a bit of a risky move. I think he might have just had to control the car a little bit. Gijsbert also making his way up the field there in 5th position. Hildebrand unfortunately off track by the looks of things. He does seem to be stuck off track, out of view of our cameras. Berengar getting going a little bit behind Gabigoos in front of him. He's under pressure here from Kiengoos. Keen tucks in behind, catches the slipstream, and he's going to make a move for the inside. Goos squeezing him, Thunder squeezing him a little bit to the inside, and Goos is just going to drive on through. It's a nice wide corner, there's lots of space there. And Thunder is going to be on the back foot for the position. Taking the inside line there for the kink. And he's going to look for a move here on the inside. Doesn't have the confidence in the brakes, and he's going to fall in behind Goos. Further behind, Gabigoos and Berengar having a nice battle here. Berengar on the outside of the corner. That's going to be Gabigoos staying ahead of him. They're running defensively. Berengar is going to look for another opportunity, tuck him behind, and look for a mistake here from Gabigoos. Berengar is taking a very, very wide line, missing the apex slightly. It's so tricky when you've got a driver in front of you, and can be quite distracting. Oh, nice hard braking into this rather sharp corner. He's gotten a very, very good exit. And that's closed the gap between himself and Gabigoos yet again. Goos slightly earlier on the brakes, and Berengar closing in quite fast on him as a result. And it's all going to be about how he sets himself up for that back straight. Berengar keeping up with him through the corner. Through the leaves, we can see them there. Berengar running on the inside of the corner, going for a bit of a switch around. Not finding the pace, and he's going to have an opportunity to run alongside. He's not taken the draft behind Goos, and that's cost him quite a little bit. As you can see him falling behind now. 148, 149 for the middle of the pack. Donny Thunder keeping in a very, very solid 3rd position. But Niekerk with a little bit more company than the previous race. He's stuck right on the rear of Gijsbert Uitknagel, and he's behind Donny Thunder in front of him, and leading them is Kiengoos. So 4 cars all in close proximity to one another. You can see Keen there in front of so Thunder right on the rear of Keen here, with the 2 other cars behind him. Keen unfortunately extending the car a little bit too much, and you can see Thunder immediately picking up the slack, catching up with him as they go through the back portion of the circuit. Thunder trying to take the inside line there, but Goos was already closing the gap when he got there. So no opportunity there. Willoughby in the lead of the race with a 6.5 second lead yet again. And if he's stuck here in Div 2, that must mean that there are some very, very serious drivers there out in Div 1. But surely we'll see him stick into Div 1 in future series. For now, Keen Goos is leading this ragtag bunch of cars. Jesper Attinagel right on the rear of Stander, and he's going to be pulling alongside him for the right-hander onto the main straight. And he's stuck right behind Stander and Van Niekerk right behind him. So Stander on the inside line, running defensively. Sorry, not on the inside line, that was Van Niekerk, apologies. So difficult with these cars sometimes. But Van Niekerk stuck to the rear of Attinagel, and this is opening up the opportunity for Willefear quite a bit. So Atti just staying behind Stander at the moment, not finding a good opportunity to get past. Van Niekerk having an absolute ball of a time here behind Attinagel. Just making sure his car is not positioned directly behind Atti's car in the braking zones. Especially with this many cars together, you might get an unforeseen concertina effect. And that's when you start rear-ending people. So he's just trying to keep out of danger in regards to that. And Atti in front of him desperately wants to get past Stander. Stander is making that car nice and wide. 12 minutes left of this race, plus an extra lap. So still a bit of racing left to do. Atti on the outside. Oh, sorry, on the inside, trying to get past Stander, and he has gotten past. But now Stander has the draft down the main straight. Van Niekerk fancies himself an opportunity here on the inside. He's going to pull alongside Stander. Stander unfortunately with no answer for it, so he's going to try and carry as much momentum as possible, but with that open line, sorry, with that inside line, Van Niekerk has pulled nice and clear of him. Attinagel getting past Keen Goos in front. And behind them, Van Niekerk and Stander still battling it out quite hard. Goos dipping a wheel into the gravel. That's going to cost him a little bit of time. Although there must have been a similar mistake from Attinagel, since you can't really see the gap closing between them. Van Niekerk now looking down the road towards the rear of Keen Goos' car. And Keen Goos and Attinagel bumping cars a little bit. That's going to be Van Niekerk going on through. And Stander looking for an opportunity as well. Not going to get it. So Atti has yet another car to get past for that second position. And Van Niekerk now just holding on for dear life. He's waiting to have a good battle, and he's got a very good one on his hands. Drifts around the corner. Atti needs to slam on the brakes to avoid him a little bit. Unfortunately, that is Van Niekerk collecting Attinagel. Stander and Goos gets past. And that's a nice little flick there from Attinagel as he gets back on the road. Van Niekerk waiting for him to get onto the road. Goos letting Stander on through. Goos only really interested in having some close battles and giving us a little bit of action here in Div 2. So it seems like Goos has given up on the championship, or not given up, but definitely not, doesn't show interest in it. He just wants to be around the other drivers and learn from them. That can sometimes be a bit of a difficult thing, especially when you're in Div 2. You don't have as close of a field in terms of skill distributions. So he is searching out those battles. Goos now on the rear of Stander, and he's chasing him down. There in the background you can hear Attinagel is going to be in a desperate fight to get back behind Stander closer to the end of the race. He still has 9 minutes 40 seconds to do it, so still a good fair amount of time at his disposal, but he needs to get that foot down. Just a shout out to Andre Hildebrand, who's joined us in the YouTube chat. Unfortunately, he's had a bit of an issue with netcode. Keen Goes unfortunately sliding off track there and narrowly avoiding Stander. Atinal is going to go on through, and Van Niekerk is now right on the rear of Keen Goes. So unfortunately, some netcode issues for Andre Hildebrand, and he's had to withdraw from the race. But it was definitely fun looking at the battles on track. From Olivier just absolutely flying. 26 seconds in front of the rest of the pack. But the action is right here. So it's going to be a battle for second. Keen Goes now nice and close to Jaco van Niekerk. Jaco looking at his rear, and he's got a fight on his hands. And I think Goes might have figured out a strategy to, I don't think this is intentional, but he's definitely figured out a strategy to appear on stream quite a bit, and that is put yourself within a second of another car and you are much more likely to get featured. So Niekerk is chasing him down. Keen just enjoying himself at this point and getting a bit more experience for the rest of his sim racing career. Dani Stander trying to hold off Gijsbert Atinagel, who is now 1.3 seconds behind him, so it's very, very close. 7.5 more minutes left of the race, and then that extra kicker of a lap. And for Stander, this can't come any sooner. Done very well to put himself into second position. But now he's going to have the fight for his life to keep Atinagel at bay here, as Ati is charging on to chase down that elusive second position on the grid. Down the main straight, and Ati has a nice little draft. Not enough to look at making a move, but he's just setting himself up for the subsequent lap. Stander now under huge amounts of pressure, and this is quite some good practice for him. Ati just stuck on the rear there, 2/10ths difference between the two drivers. Stander taking a defensive line and then going back to the racing line. Just making sure he doesn't open the door for Ati quite yet. Ati just patiently sitting there. He knows if there's contact he's going to lose out, so he's just looking out for kinks in Stander's armor. Stander well aware that he needs to keep everything consistent now. A single mistake and it's going to be, his fight's over, and he might even end up with Goos and Van Niekerk also overtaking him, with them just being 4 to 5 seconds down the road. I see now preparing himself to look at the rear of Stander's car for that back straight, and he seems to have gotten a very, very solid exit. He's going to fall into the draft. So just keep up and we'll see how he does for that right-handed turn. Stander having to lift the throttle a little bit. You can see Atinagel just poised there in his mirrors. Ati trying to get a run there on the outside. Not going to, sorry, on the inside. He's not going to get an opportunity for it. So they're going to be pulling side by side through the first right-hander. Ati now poised on the inside. He's pulled ahead. And Stunner now has to chase down Ati, or at least stay with him for at least the next few laps. In the background, Poos and Van Niekerk having an absolute blast of a time. And Stunner looking for an opportunity, so he's losing quite a bit of speed on that last corner, and I think that's where the secret for most people's lap times are. The drivers might not be thinking about running that right-hander flat. Goes a bit slow through the exit of that corner, and Van Niekerk is going to try and go around the outside. Unfortunately, losing Leach Senior there. I think the damage to his car might just be a little bit too severe. So Goos now working to hold off Van Niekerk behind him. Van Niekerk giving him a good run for his money. And a bit of a drift there from Melbourne as the tyres start crying out for help here at the end of the lap. And they're pulling side by side for that last corner. This is going to be very, very tricky. Goos squeezing Van Niekerk on the inside, not giving him too much room to extend that corner or open it up. And Van Niekerk is going to have to fall back in the draft of Goos. But they are very, very close going through this right-hander. Goos dipping the wheel onto the grass. Still maintaining control of his car, so he wasn't turning that much while he was in contact with the grass. Van Niekerk pulling alongside him is going to be stuck on the outside. Goos running a defensive line on the inside and just closing that door as soon as Van Niekerk arrives. Now, unfortunately, that is a massive spin from Goos. Van Niekerk gets past, narrowly avoiding his car, and he's now up into 4th position. On in front, Sean Winterview kind of avoiding the cameras because he's just all out on his own, just having a ball of a time. So we can maybe sit on board with him and see what it looks like to do a fast lap of Poznan. So nice charge down to the first corner, and just nice hold on the brakes, get the car turned in, back on the throttle, just managing it almost like we do with an oval race. And you need to make sure that you optimize that line so you can get the foot down to get the car accelerated out of that corner. The rest of the turn is a bit of a non-issue now. Hard braking zone again for that very sharp left-hander. Nice and early on the throttle, get the car going. Now get the car hooked in on the apex, make it drift out wide, get on the throttle as soon as you possibly can. And now into the second sector, there's another sharp right-hander. It's going to be some heavy braking. Get that car turned while some last trail braking is being applied. Get the car moved over to the right-hand side of the circuit. Lift the throttle a little bit, get the car turned to the left. And again, just managing the throttle through that right-hander. Next corner surely is going to be just flat. Just make sure you get that shift done early so you don't unsettle the car in the middle of the corner. Left-hand turn, just a slight safety lift before it. And now there's a left-right. Manage the throttle while you make sure that you don't unsettle the car with some shifts. Unfortunately, Olivier losing some time there with a bit of a poor exit, and he's feeling it all the way to the main straight. Tires are giving in slightly, so it's no longer flat on entry, but just a slight lift. Move the weight towards the front of the car and get that car turned to the right. So Sean will be showing us how it's done. Tony Stunner in 5th position, just enjoying himself. And we are going to have 2 more laps of racing. Olivier just crossing the line as we left him. And the timer has now run out. Goos, unfortunately, yet again having some trouble with the car. That's going to be Thunder moving on through. tires giving in now as the drivers start nearing the end of the race. Well, I say tires giving in. I think they're just losing a little bit of grip, and the margin for error on this track is very, very small. Veronica now up into 5th position. Stunner comes across the line for his last lap. Well, if he half of the lap left, so he's very close to the end of the race. It's going to be a very, very good weekend for him in regards to the racing around this track. Poznan turning out to be a lot more tricky, and his consistency around the track plus his utter speed has really paid off quite well. So he has had someone spin out there in front of him. That is the car of Javi Gous, who's unfortunately struggling a little bit in the later stages of the race. So Jean-Olivier is going to charge on past and go around the last corner to secure the win for the second race. So that's a massive job from him. Atinachel onto the last few straights as he finishes up his race in second, you would assume. Last right hand corner not being too tricky, he can afford to lose 14 seconds. So he's going to make sure that he goes through it nice and safely. Van der Kerk now onto the last corner. Coming home in third, Donnie Stander yet again in 4th position, also looking very, very solid. So the winners of, well, the podiums positions from the previous race remaining the same for this race as well. Keen Gous rounding the last corner in 5th position. Although I have been a bit early, I just realized as we're now on the final lap, I was 1 lap early. I was wondering why the cars weren't disappearing off the list. But the gaps being as large as they are between the drivers, I would not expect any changes whatsoever. Olivier already sounding like he's on a cooldown lap. So he's just making sure he gets across the line in a safe manner. You can see lifting very early and not pushing the car at all. Almost coming into the pits, and he's going to now come across the line. And that's going to be for the official win. Atinachel coming around the last corner. Javi Gous also finishing out his race in 7th position. And Olivier just getting himself a seat for looking at the drivers coming across the line. Jacob van der Kerk in 3rd position. So I was correct, just 1 lap early. He comes across the line. Donnie Stander through the last corner in 4th position. Looking solid for the finish. And then Keen Gous also rounding the end of the circuit. So in a nice comfortable 5th position, finishes off in style. And we've got Hilke Veronica coming across the line in a 6th position. Probably one of the toughest races we've had this season, so well done to all of the finishers. I'll go and quickly check if I can get some of the drivers for some interviews, and then we'll also be preparing to go on board with the Div 1 race. So stay tuned for that. I'll be back with you shortly. Welcome back, everyone. So I've got Ati Nagel here with me in the studio, and he's had a rather fun little evening. Very consistent finishes, two second position finishes. Massive congrats, Ati. And that second race looked like a bit of a tougher one to kind of get on through the pack, but you looked very, very solid. What was that like for you, and what was the new track like to get acquainted to?
New tracks is always difficult to learn and get your rhythm, but once your rhythm is there, it's always easier. The second race is always a reverse grid, which is nice. It's something else. Working your way through the traffic. Catching someone is easy, overtaking it not always so easy. But yeah, I mean, it's part of the racing. It's the joy of it.
It definitely looked like consistency was king here at the track. The overtaking, I mean, we saw quite a few fun little overtakes, but also quite a few overtakes happening due to mistakes being made in the previous corner. Did you put a lot of practice into getting your speed up, or were you trying to focus on just keeping that consistency going through your races?
Consistency is always, I believe, number one. Look, you have to be fast as well. But one fast lap out of 5 laps doesn't always help you. And then making as little mistakes as you go on.
Yeah, definitely agree. And then from your side, any supporters that you want to give a shout out for? Any people they want to say thanks for?
Well, everybody on the YouTube channel that's watching, hi to everyone. Sim Racing Experience for hosting everything. And then for you.
It's always a big pleasure, and it's also a big pleasure from the guys at Sim Experience South Africa that's kind of backing me up with everything. I normally just kind of show up and talk nonsense, so that's my role in the whole thing. But thank you so much for your time, Ati. I'm going to quickly see if I can go get Sean to for an interview again, and thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
Good luck also for the Red Bull Ring that's coming up a little bit later.
Thanks.
Okay, guys, so I'll be back shortly. We still have the Div 1 drivers in a practice session, so I'm also just keeping an eye out for that while we're busy with the interviews. Okay, so I've got Sean Willoughby here with me in the room, and just a massive congrats, Sean, with both race wins. You're probably very happy with it, but you already looked like the race favorite with the times that you were doing in qualifying. You were just absolutely flying, so looking very, very solid here on track. What was that like for you, and what was your prep like before coming to the new circuit?
Yes, weet jy, ek het nie regtig baie geoefen die week nie. Maar ja, 'n triekie baan tot jy die draaie uitfigure. Dis maar waar jou probleem lê, is die draaie op die baan, lyk dit my. Maar ja, 'n lekker baan as jy hom eers leer ken en ja, het goed gery, almal het goed gery. So was lekker.
It definitely looked like a whole bunch of fun, but definitely agree the turns were kind of in a bit of a weird middle ground. Just too fast to be slow and just too slow to be completely flat out. So yeah, saw quite a few people losing the rear a little bit and going off into the gravel. In terms of your prep for the Red Bull Ring, how do you feel for that track? Bit of a easier one since it's a bit more of a popular track that gets run in leagues, or is it a new one for you with the MX5s?
Dit sal 'n nuwe baan wees vir my. Ek nog glad nog eers gery nie. So ek sal die week seker maar 'n bietjie redelik maar net practice en hom maar leer, as ek sê ek ken glad nie daai baan nie. Dit gaan weer 'n uitdaging wees vir hom.
Definitely agree, but you seem to have it all under control. In terms of people supporting you, any people you want to send a shout out for? Any people that you want to say thanks for tuning in?
Ag, net almal wat ons ondersteun op die reis. Baie dankie vir julle almal. As nie vir hulle was nie, was dit ook nie maar moontlik vir ons ouens om dit te enjoy nie. So ja, dankie vir almal.
Awesome stuff. And thank you so much for your time, Sean. Hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll send you back to the Div 2 division chat there, so you can have a bit of a chat with Ati about how things went. And yeah, thank you so much.
Ag, thanks man. Cheers.
Cheers. Okay, so Div 1 has literally just finished their practice session, so I'll send you to a quick ad break, and then we'll just wait for those cars to come in back to the pits. Sometimes it takes a bit of time. The Div 1 guys do love a spot of practice. So we'll be back shortly. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are back on track, and everyone's gone out of the pits and are filing on through. If you are just joining us, welcome to Sim Experience South Africa. We are racing MX5s at Poznan. It's a Polish track, bit of a odd one. It's something that's a bit new to most of the drivers. Just quickly having a look at the championship standings. So we've got Dylan Versace leading out in front with 1,252 points. Then Dennis Mitchell right on his rear with 1,231 points. Peter Krobler in third position, the last driver and 1,200 points. Then we've got James Leach Jr., Tommy Leary Moss, Ian Upton, Richard van Heerden, Melvin Goes, James Crook, Michael Rust, Donny van Rooyen, Stephen Castellan, Robert Franco, Sean Johnson, Timo Smit, Arman Nieuwoud, Alistair Barnard, Rian van der Westhuizen, Craig Wesley, Gijsbert Attinagel in 20th position. That's going to be changing after tonight's performance. Marius van Wyk 21st, Andre Hildebrand 22nd, Tian Marais 23rd, Eric Leitwanger 24th, Sean Willifier 25th. That's also going to change after tonight's performance. Then Peter Geldenhuis, James Leach Senior, Steven Sparks, Rossiman, Donny Stander, René Leach, Matt Williams, Hilke Wieringa, Keen Goos, Harvey Goos, Willem Stein. Then John Baton, Sean Webber, Dennis Knutse, Basil van Rijn, Dean van Dijk, Stuart Mack, Dave Brady and Nico Smith. Just having a quick look at the track map again. 4 kilometers in length. It's a bit of a tricky one. Established in 1975. We had, I think Bernie Eccleston was actually advising on the creation of it. So interesting track. We've had legends like Jackie Stewart and Michael Schumacher drive on here. Quite fast corners for these MX5s. I mean, this track has been demonstrated well, there has been some demonstrations on this track with some F1 cars. So if they are capable of racing this track, you'll see the MX5s finding themselves in a slight awkward situation with the corners being fast enough that they can do them on partial throttle, but also slow enough to give them some issues in terms of losing the grip on the rear of the car. Looking at the weather, it's nice and cool, 22 degrees Celsius in the air, 36 degrees Celsius on track. No real trouble for the tires, clear skies, and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon as per usual. So yeah, things are looking good. Everyone's making their way around the track. I'm also just waiting for my timing screens on my secondary screen to kind of catch up. So we've got Dylan Versace absolutely flying at the moment. He's doing 1:45.930. There's Mitchell on his heels with the 1:46.032. We'll still get the official times up on screen. It's only a 10-minute qualifying, so it's a bit tricky with this long of a lap. But we'll still see how everyone settles in. We've got a bit of a fuller field than previously. So the Div 2 field has started to thin out a little bit. You've only got the very dedicated drivers that are able to participate. Some drivers unfortunately not able to join due to real life responsibilities, and of course, we do excuse those as well. And then some drivers that unfortunately just didn't enjoy the MX5's cars that much. So, yeah, we unfortunately lost them along the way. But you've got the cream of the crop here. Div 1 right in front of you. And these guys are going to be extremely fast around here. Wickedly fast, to say so. And we look forward to seeing the racing happening right here. Div 2 was already quite interesting with some nice midfield battles happening all the way around. And with the smaller skill gaps that we've got in Div 1, this is going to be even closer. So Dylan Versace coming around the last corner for another fast lap. He's slightly improved this time by almost just a 10th. And that's going to be a 148.826. But he is outperformed by Steven Castellan, who's jumped all the way to 145.593. Also a shout out to his wife. She's out there supporting him on the YouTube channel. Always a special thing to see the family and spouses supporting the drivers as well. So it's all very special thing for me to see. James Crook in third position, another driver in the 145s. Then Tommy Leary Moss, also 145, and just behind him, Robert Franco, last driver in the 145s. But everyone's starting to get a lap in here around toward Poznan. Michael Rust in the middle of his lap, unfortunately struggling a little bit. So we'll check. Okay, there's someone that my timing towers have caught up with. So Dylan Versace improving on his lap. So he's got the possibility of jumping into pole if he can outperform Steven Castellan. I think Castellan jumped into the pits for some fresher tires, unless he's given it his utmost best lap and he's happy that he can't do anything better during qualifying. Then he'll be preparing for the race itself. Dylan Versace finding 5/10. I don't know where he's pulled that from, but he's improved massively. And he's going to come across the line and jump into pole. Losing a bit of time on exit, and I might have spoken too soon. It does look like his lap was invalidated, so that's a bit of a shame for Dylan Versace, but a sigh of relief for Steven Castellan. Peter Grobler jumping into 7th position with a 146.181. Robert Franco on an absolute flyer at the moment. He's right on the rear of Tommy Leary Moss. If this is a clean lap, he's going to be very happy with how this turns out. So 3/10 in the bag. And he's going to pop not just past Tommy Leary Moss, but all the way into 2nd position, doing a 145.650. So Franco is surprising all of us there, getting in a very comfortable position. The rest of the field are still making their way around. No one with too much of an answer for that. Out and back, Real Thunder Westhuizen with a bit of an improvement. Unfortunately, some commentators curse as just as we jump to him, he loses all of the time that he gained through that first sector of the track. Bit of a shame, really. Dylan Versace is trying to fight back, not finding the pace that he would really want. So he's right on the cusp of what he's capable of, it would seem, at this moment. Further behind, Peter Kalnes finding some time going around the track. He's into the middle sector of the course. This is probably one of the more trickier sections, with corners in some awkward speed gaps for this specific car. So 2/10 in hand, he just needs to get through the last portion of the circuit. Dennis Mitchell jumping into 2nd position with a 145.647. So well done to him. He's kind of snuck by my radar. But we're currently on board with Peter Galnes. And he's just had a very nice exit onto the back straight. And that's going to serve him quite nicely. Let's see if he keeps the foot down on the right-hander. He manages the throttle on entry a little bit, then gets it down yet again. And that's going to be 3/10 in the pocket for him. And that's going to unfortunately not register. He's not had a valid lap. That's a bit of a shame. Tommy Leary Moss also with an improvement. He's in the middle of the circuit. Of course, our trophy sponsor for the series. You'll see his logo up on the right hand side of the screen, KDP, and on the bonnet of the car. Unfortunately losing some time through the second sector of the track, and that's unfortunately cost him quite dearly. Robert Franco in third position, finding some more time, drifting the car a little bit. I'm not sure how much time that's going to cost him. He's managed to hold on to the time that he has gained through the majority of the lap. He is right on the cusp of getting past Dennis Mitchell. If he can hold on to this time, it's just 3 1,000ths that he needs to get past Mitchell. So he's going to be absolutely gunning it all the way to the end of the lap. Qualifying has ended, so it's do or die. It's last call for these drivers. Franco losing a bit of time on that little bit of a back and forth before the turn onto the back straight, but he's had a very, very good exit. It all depends on one single corner, so he's just keeping it absolutely pinned. He's got nothing to lose. And he's gained 2/10, if that's a valid lap. That's going to send him all the way into pole, right in the death throes of the end of qualifying. So that is something that he's going to be extremely happy with. Dylan Versace finding a 10th. So he's going to be fighting for it for the rest of the circuit. And also very close to Leach Jr. in front of him, so I'm just quickly looking at the YouTube chat. I do apologize. I unfortunately made a mistake. It's not Stephen Castellan's wife supporting him, it's his mother. So sorry for that bit of awkwardness that I may have caused, but it's always awesome seeing the family support one another as well. So Dylan unfortunately unable to find the time throughout his lap. He has gotten a valid one in though, and that's popped him past Dennis Mitchell, so into third position. He's still going to be happy with that. Tommy Leary Moss jumps into sixth. And I think that was Ian Upton coming across the line as well. So everyone's settled for the start of the race. It's going to be Robert Franco, then Stephen Castellan, Dylan Versace, Dennis Mitchell, James Leach Jr., Tommy Leary Moss, James Crook, Peter Grobler. Who's that just came across the line? Must have been Melvin Goos, I think. Melvin, the pit lane is the other way around, but yeah, he is just having a little bit of fun with this car right at the end of qualifying. I'm sending you to a quick ad break, and then we'll be right back with the race itself. So see you very soon. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are on the grid. The drivers gave me quite a bit of a scare revving up the engines like that, but the lights are not out yet. We're prepping for the first race of the Div 1 evening. It's 2 races tonight. The first one happening right now. And we are ready for some action. The front of the grid very, very close together. We've got Robert Franco out in front. And he's leading the race as we get going. 6 lights out and away we go. Very good start there for Tommy Moss in the background. And Robert Franco there out in the lead, getting away quite cleanly. He's off out in front. Everyone following closely behind. So Robert Franco and Stephen Castellan, very, very comfortable start for both of them. Further behind, Dylan Versace and Dennis Mitchell duking it out. Dennis Mitchell almost right alongside him there as they go into the next few corners. Tommy Moss just smelling opportunity here, looking for something that might come his way. Mitchell sticking his nose on the inside. Versace looking in. Unfortunately, that's a bit of a collision there. Tommy Moss pushed off circuit and he's having some trouble rejoining. Nice mid-back battle here. Michael Rust, James Crook and Richard van Heerden. So Richard van Heerden and James Crook there next to one another as they go into the next few corners. Dennis Mitchell sticking to the rear of Dylan Versace, not keeping up with him as nicely as he would want. So we're going to go back to this midfield pack. So Michael Rust with this immense group of cars right behind them. The middle of the pack very close together. Now unfortunately we've had a bit of a collision. Stephen Castellan and Dylan Versace getting very, very close to one another there. I don't think it was a collision. I just heard a bunch of noise. Might have even been a car going off into the dirt. But a massive fight here for third position. Side by side into the last corner. Mitchell is going to pull along the inside, but he's now going to have to deal with Castellan in his draft. And Castellan is going to have his choice coming down to the first corner. He's trying to pull out of the draft, trying to pull alongside Mitchell. It's going to be on the brakes for the first corner. It's a very strong inside line, and Castellan is going to regain that third position, and he's going to push Mitchell to the outside of the track. But they're still side by side, giving each other a lot of space. And it's going to be some heavy braking into the corner. Dennis Mitchell on the inside. Castellan is going to stick it in there. He's going to remain alongside, now falling behind. And he's going to be on the fight back for the rest of the lap. Further behind, James Leach Jr. and Ross Heeman in a nice battle here in the middle of the pack. They're right where the action is. And Leach now wants to open up a bit of a gap in front of them. Van Heeren and Crook also battling it out. Out in front, Franco just opening up the gap. 2 seconds of a lead this early in the race. 3 minutes done. Or I think it's 3 minutes done. And we still have 17 minutes left on the racing clock. Very, very intense start for all of the drivers right here. Many of them in battles. Out front, Richard van Heeren and James Crook pulling alongside one another. Van Heeren getting the better exit onto the back straight. And you can almost see the entire field in one single picture. So close is the racing that is happening right here. Mitchell and Castellan also very, very close together. Castellan is going to look for a move there on the inside. Mitchell covering it off. And Castellan is just going to stick behind him and keep in that draft. Taking his time, looking for an opportunity. He's very well matched with Mitchell in front of him right here. Now into the inside, hard on the brakes. And has to pray that Mitchell doesn't turn in on him. But they've given each other ample room, so they're definitely keeping it very clean. Mitchell going for the switchback. as Castellan carries the car towards the outside of the corner, but now for the next corner, Castellan is going to have that inside line, even though they're pulling side by side. Castellan is going to be a bit early on the brakes. Dennis Mitchell keeping that momentum going, and that might have given him the upper hand on Castellan. Castellan now falling back a little bit. Michael Rust coming into the mix. And then behind him, he's got Richard Van Heeren, James Crook, Leach Jr. and Ross Himman, all in close proximity. So Dennis Mitchell leading a whole bunch of angry cars as they chase down towards the back stretch of the circuit. Dylan Versaki is starting to erode that lead that Robert Franco has out in front there, you can see. So Robert Franco only a second ahead now. Crook and Van Heeren swapping positions there in the background. Side by side into the last corner, and Crook is just going to stick by the side. Dylan Versaki setting the fastest lap, so he's just absolutely flying at the moment. We're going to get 4 wide, or 3 wide at least, for that first corner. Unfortunately, James Crook, the filling in the MX5 sandwich right there, and they've kept it clean somehow. I do not know how that's been possible. And Crook getting squeezed there. That's going to be Leach Jr. getting ejected off the track. And quite a few cars getting collected there in the background. That's going to be Ross Himman and Richard Van Heeren losing out quite badly. Dennis Mitchell and Steven Castellan at one another's throat here at the sharp end of the grid. Castellan now just 2/10 behind Mitchell. They are starting to fall behind Versaki a little bit. And Versaki is charging down Franco. You can see those times just coming down ever so slightly each and every single lap. But Mitchell doing well to keep ahead of Castellan. They go into the second portion of the circuit. So superb job from all of the drivers here. Further down the pack, Ian Upton and Richard Van Heeren in a little bit of a battle there. Just stuck there on his rear like a piece of glue. Or piece of plastic, to be honest. Massive drift from Van Heeren as he sticks the rear out, and that's going to be a big mistake for him as they head onto the backstretch. That's come at the absolute worst time. Upton unfortunately not able to capitalize on the mistake as much as he would like though. And he's just sticking in the draft of Van Heeren there. Upton trying to break the draft. He's swerving a bit to the inside to cover off that line. Upton quick to go towards the inside, and he's pulled alongside Van Heeren, or almost. Van Heeren's momentum carrying him through the corner, but Upton is going to have the inside line for the next little bit of a kink on the road. Now some heavy braking for the next corner. While they are battling it out, Robert Franco is coming under pressure. Versaki is closing in on him 3/10 a bit earlier in the lap, and now 6/10 at the moment. So it's going to start developing into a very, very nice battle here at the sharp end. And very true indeed, as Cleopas is saying, it's like lap 1 has never ended. It's just non-stop action as we go along. Versaki is just sticking to Franco's rear here. Let's just get you a bit of a vantage point of how close Versaki is following the car in front of him. And you can see he's just poking his nose there, trying to see if there's an opportunity. But now he's got to follow in that draft. It's going to be unwise to let go of this draft in front of him. And they're going to go through the right-hander onto the main stretch. The start-finish straight. And you can see Versaki 5/10 faster on that previous lap. So 1:45.082. Sticking his nose on the inside. Possibly where it doesn't belong, but they've pulled side by side. And Versaki might be taking the lead right here. He's out in front in the timing screen, but is that overtake been done yet? He's going to be on the outside. Franco is going to try and come into the inside for the next corner. Doesn't have the confidence on the brakes. And he's going to fall behind Versace and try and chase that lead down. But unfortunately, sorry, I just thought that I heard a car spinning out, but that's going to be Mitchell and Castellan on screen now in a battle for third position. 2 seconds to Franco, that's a bit further up the road, so he's within visual range. They've not lost touch with him, so they are going to be absolutely battling it out. In the middle of the field, a bit of chaos going on. Geldenhuys and Van Heeren battling it out, almost side by side in the previous section, and now just on the bumper of Geldenhuys' car. So Van Heeren sticking it on the inside. There's going to be a little bit of contact between the cars, and unfortunately that's going to be Van Heeren losing control. Sorry, not Van Heeren, but Grobler and Geldenhuys losing it. That is a bit of a different way of re-entering the track. So unfortunately those cars out of the running. Leach Jr. sticking it way on the inside of the back stretch. I think he might be waiting for some cars that he thought he caused the incident with. Robert Franco in a battle for the lead with Dylan Versace. So just caught that. Robert getting very close there on the first corner. He's going to stick to the rear of Versace's car and continue the battle onwards. Mitchell catching up with them now. 1.5, 1.4 seconds between them. So if this fight between Versace and Franco continues, it's going to start becoming a four-way battle for the lead, with Mitchell and Castellan joining the party. Rest of the field getting along quite well, but the action is starting to pile up here at the front of the pack. Franco now very, very aware of Mitchell closing in behind him. He's kind of lost touch with Versace a little bit. Versace opening up a gap of 1.3 seconds as Franco is starting to prepare a bit of a defense for Mitchell, who is coming up just less than a second down the road. So Castellan, the rear end of that 4-car train, just carrying on in the draft of Mitchell's car. Normally you want 5/10 for a rather effective draft to really carry your car on forwards, but you can even feel the effect as far as a second. Onto the back stretch, you've got Tommy Leary-Moss, Ian Upton and Richard van Heeren all in an outright battle here for 7th position. Moss in a bit of a safer position in regards to his place on the grid at the moment, but Van Heeren is right on the rear of Upton. Upton working very hard to make sure that Van Heeren's car stays behind him. There in the background, I think that might have been Leach Jr. or Brady, possibly going off the circuit a little bit. And a little bit of contact between Upton and Van Heeren, and that is Upton spun around. Upton unfortunately losing out there. Mitchell with Robert Franco here out in front. Now 3/10 dividing these two drivers into the final sector of the track. Mitchell is just absolutely stuck to the rear of Franco's car, almost side by side. And Mitchell shimmying towards the outside. Sorry, not Mitchell, Castellan. So a bit of a mistake there while we were stuck in the trees with our cameraman. Castellan falling down into 4th position as he and Franco still battles it out here at the back end of the grid. Mitchell sneaking past into 2nd position. And now he's going to start chasing down Dylan Versace there out in front. So Castellan doing well to keep in the top 4 and in some hard battles here. So Franco is now having to deal with Castellan right on his rear. He's done a superb qualifying lap, but struggling a little bit with consistency on the track, making some small mistakes. That's costing him a little bit of time here in the later stages of the race. Ian Upton and Peter Probler coming off the first corner, with Probler just right on the rear of Upton's car. Upton not deciding to cover off the defensive line. Brady in a bit of a difficult situation on in front. Upton very slow out of that corner. Probler is going to charge up his inside, and he's going to make the overtake stick as they charge on through. Castellan now getting past Franco. So kind of snuck that one by us, I think, or I might be remembering incorrectly. But Castellan now 2 seconds behind Dennis Mitchell. So this battle for 3rd and 4th is costing them a little bit of time, but they are keeping in touch with one another. Michael Rust a bit further down the road there, and then James Crook slightly behind him. And the rest of the pack is a little bit further back. So Dave Brady and Tien Murray in an outright battle for 10th position. And Murray just sticking to the back of Brady's car. Brady deciding to use a defensive line, trying to break the draft. It's not going to be able to, so he's now deep on the inside. With Murray driving around this outside, he's going to go back to the racing line and just fall in behind Murray to see if he can make it work. The field is starting to separate now. Most of the drivers separated by gaps larger than a second. On front, Dylan Versace 2.6 seconds lead to Mitchell behind him, and he's starting to improve on his times again. But someone who's put in a purple first sector is going to be Stephen Castellan, as he works to lose Franco behind him. Franco not letting Castellan drive off into the sunset. You can see 7 tenths behind him, so Franco is definitely keeping Castellan honest. And if there's a simple mistake from Castellan, that's going to be Franco on through. So nail-biting stuff here for Castellan. Franco running way off the track. He's had to lift there to keep control of his car, so he's going to lose out a few tenths. And onto the main stretch they go. So is Castellan going to be able to break that second marker, or that 1 second gap? It seems like Franco got a very good exit out of that last corner. 8 tenths between them, so it's back and forth. Castellan very strong through the heavy braking zones, and it seems like Franco is a lot more confident on the high speed corners. Franco just needs to be careful towards the end of the race, where it becomes a bit more tricky to really capitalize on those high speed corners. So looking around the pack a little bit, someone that's had a bit of a quiet race, although he did see a few things happening, was James Crook. He's got Michael Rust 1.4 seconds down the road from him, so you can see him in front of him, but he is a bit of a way off. So it's just enough to really motivate Crook to get that foot down on the accelerator pedal and push the car as hard as possible. So looking at the last lap times, Dylan Versace and Dennis Mitchell 1:44.677 for Versace and 1:44.870 for Dennis Mitchell. You can see they're starting to open up that gap to Castellan. Front 4 runners now all 2 seconds apart, and we've got 40 seconds left for the rest of the race and then one lap after that. So Versace crosses the line with 33 seconds to spare, so that's going to be 2 more laps of racing left in this race, and it definitely can't come sooner for some of these drivers. Dennis Mitchell running out of time here. He's going to be fighting to preserve second place. He's not going to have enough time to catch up with Versace at all. He just needs to make sure that he doesn't make a mistake, because Castellan is there on the horizon behind him. He's going to look at an opportunity to do something. Craig Wesley, a man that we've not seen that much of recently, stuck on the rear of Probler there, so he's chasing him down for this last lap. So some action for us here at the back of the grid, just showing how close these drivers are in terms of their skill gaps. Probler hard on the brakes. Wesley looking for an opportunity to get past, not finding it. And it's going to be hard work for him. So he probably fancies his chances with the draft down the back straight and the main straight. He needs to make sure that he doesn't lose touch with Grobler completely. Grobler now 0.6 seconds down the road. Wesley bringing out the rear a little bit. That rear end of the car slightly loose. And that is the thing with cars that rely on mechanical grip. At a certain speed, you can't just throw them into a corner, so it does make it a little bit more tricky. Wesley still keeping up. Fastest lap from Dennis Mitchell. That was a 144.513. 5 tenths faster than Dylan Versace. We're going to be on the last lap. And they are going to be chasing one another. So Dylan Versace trying to keep it as neat as possible. He has some time in pocket. So he just needs to make sure that he keeps it neat and tidy for the rest of this lap. Further behind him, Michael Rust has some pressure to deal with here in the death throes of the race, as Crook is hunting him down. 7 tenths between them. That's a single mistake and Crook is going to be passed. So he needs to be very, very careful in this final few corners. Still nothing happening out in front. So we are keeping an eye out on what's happening with those front runners. Tommy Lumos also doing quite well there. Back into 7th position after a slightly rough start. So he's done well to stick the car into the middle of the pack. Michael Rust still keeping ahead. Crook half a second down the road from him. You can't really expect too much to happen from this. Tian Murray now right on the rear of Leach Jr. So this battle is going to continue right until the end. And your finishers at the front are going to be Versace, Mitchell, Castellan, Franco, Rust, Crook, Moss, Van Heerden, Leach Jr. and then Tian Murray right here on your screen. And then we've got Brady and Peter Grobler further down the pack from him. So Peter Grobler is going to come across the line in 12th position. Craig Wesley, position number 13. Ross Himman coming across the line in 14th position. Ian Upton, a bit of a rough race. Unfortunately got knocked around a little bit. He's going to be in 15th position. And Rian van der Westhuizen, I'm not sure if he is the person that's actually been to Poland and that's actually raced here in a real life car. It might be him, if I remember it correctly. So Rian van der Westhuizen, possibly the only driver on this grid with real life experience on this track. So that's going to be it for race number 1. We're going to have a reverse grid, so I'm going to send you over to some advertisements while we get the cars prepared and ready for that second race. So expect Van der Westhuizen to be stuck out at the front of the grid. He normally does quite well in these situations, so it's all going to depend on that first lap. Anyway, see you after the advertisement break, and we will be back shortly. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are back on the grid with the drivers, and we're just waiting to get going. So Rian van der Westhuizen heading out the front of the grid, and then we've got Ian Upton sat next to him, Ross Heman and Craig Wesley. So they're going to have a nice little battle on their hands for the start of the race. Lights are up, we are ready to get going. And the race director is going to make us wait a little bit. 4, 5, 6 lights. Lights are out and we are off. So superb start for Van der Westhuizen, and then I think that might have been Craig Wesley getting a flyer of a start there. We're going to have them go 3 wide into that first corner. Ross Heman, this time the meet in the MX5 sandwich, and Upton wisely backs out of that one. He does not want to get bumped around more than he's already been, and they're going to charge on through to the rest of the field. So Krobler right on the rear there for Rian van der Westhuizen. Krobler charging towards the inside. He's going to try and get that line done, but he doesn't have the confidence on the brake, so he's going to be alongside with Van der Westhuizen. Unfortunately, that looked like a little bit of contact there. I'm not sure. Van Westhuizen and Krobler are still going through now. Human and Krobler side by side behind him. Krobler losing a bit of time there through the corner exit. Human pulling out in front of him slightly. Krobler hard on the brakes to avoid contact. And that has brought Thierry Marais very close to the battle as well. So Krobler now the one in the midst of it. Thierry Marais just looking for any kind of slip-up or mistake from Krobler. Oh, and that's... Van der Best has just completely spun off on his own. And that's Himan as well. Taking some avoiding action. Unfortunately, finding himself on an anti-cut curb and sending him bouncing into the grass. Further down the field, Dennis Mitchell and Stephen Castellan in a nice solid battle there. All of them getting in line. Only car that you can really figure out there is Tommy Moss's white car. Castellan in front of Mitchell there. Mitchell in the number 42 car. Right on the rear of Castellan's car. You can see him dropping, going towards the inside. Castellan is not going to cover off that inside line. There in the background you can see Melvin Gose's car unfortunately spinning off on the track. And in front, Thierry Marais has lost position with Castellan as well. So Thierry Marais right next to Leach Jr. And he's regained the position again. So Leach Jr. fancies him in position, doesn't have the confidence on the brakes to get the overtake done on the inside. He's going to fall back behind Thierry Marais and battle out. Peter Krobler looking very solid in first position there. And not able to open up the gap. So Thierry Marais might have a possible battle on his hands here if he starts catching up with Krobler anymore. Tommy Moss and Michael Rust in the battle here. And then out in front there you also saw Leach Jr. and James Crook very close together. Mitchell and Castellan also swapping positions there in the middle of the grid. And Rust just closely following behind Tommy Moss. Right on the rear of Moss's car. And Moss is just able to open up the gap every now and then. Staying slightly ahead. Massive battle here. Further behind him, you can see there Dennis Mitchell, Stephen Castellan, Dylan Fasaki, all of your front runners from the previous race in a battle for 8th position. 144.861 for Peter Krobler out in front. That seems quite quick since he's now in the open air. Stephen Castellan up on the inside of Dennis Mitchell, and they are side by side through corner number 1. Castellan very careful not to get run into by Dennis Mitchell, so steering away onto the outside. Dennis Mitchell taking the inside line, and Dylan Fasaki is going to sneak on through on the inside as well. So Castellan unfortunately losing 2 positions in one go there. Behind him, Robert Franco falling behind slightly, and is now under pressure from Ian Upton. Ian trying to go for that move on the inside. Is he going to have the confidence on the brakes? And unfortunately just arrives a little bit late as Franco closes that gap right there. Out in front, Peter Krobler and Thierry Marais is still comfortably in the lead. And Leach Jr. now fancying his chances for that 2nd position. Leach Jr. 5 tenths behind Marais. That's not a lot, especially if you're heading down the back straight. The rest of the back not fairly spread out, fairly close. And Stephen Castellan and Robert Franco are going to have a battle on their hands onto the main straight. Franco getting a very nice exit out of that last corner. He's going to be in the draft of Castellan. Castellan now under pressure is not going to defend it, so Franco is going to go up towards the inside. Not going to have the confidence on the brakes. Castellan running that middle line, keeping the momentum going through the corner, and he's going to at least be side by side with Franco. And on the inside for the left-hander, so looking very solid. He's actually pulling ahead of Franco. Franco deciding he's not going to lose any more time with that battle. Tian Marais falling behind Leach Jr. While we were looking elsewhere. Leach getting into second position, so now doing a superb job of promoting himself up in the pack. So Peter Probler might have a battle on his hands in a few laps time. 13 minutes left, or 13 and a half minutes left, plus that kicker of an extra lap, and that might prove decisive for this race. Michael Rust under pressure from Dennis Mitchell, and Dylan Versace is looking to also maybe slip on through. On in front of them, that is Marais and Crook battling it out. So James Crook and Tian Marais neck and neck onto the back straight. That's going to be, I think, Tian Marais, Leach Jr. getting onto the grass slightly. You can see Crook right in the middle of Marais and Van Heerden on the run down to the first corner. They're very close together. There's surely going to be a move, and that's going to be Crook darting towards the inside, getting the move done on Marais. So Marais is slightly down through the pack, but it does look like he's going to try and fight back for that position. Behind Marais, Van Heerden is also looking for an opportunity. Going towards the inside, Marais is going to have a bit of a tough time with this one and falls behind Van Heerden. So a rough start to the lap for Tian Marais, who's now finding some of the faster drivers coming on through. Though he's done very, very well to keep in front thus far, so he might have just be struggling with the track a little bit. Dylan Versace and Dennis Mitchell neck and neck, side by side, into one of the twistiest sections of the track. Versace ahead of Mitchell. Mitchell really doesn't want to let this happen, so he's going to be trying to keep that momentum going around the outside, just keeping the nose ahead. Needs to stay side by side for this next section of the track. You can see that darker car of Mitchell just ahead as they swap sides. Versace now right behind Mitchell, but he's being backed into Michael Rust and Stephen Caslin behind him. Stephen Caslin just on the rear of Michael Rust, so he might also come into play quite soon. Versace and Mitchell battling it out, and this is counting in the favor of the front runners at the moment. I think Peter Probler is extremely happy that this battle is happening. Versace now with a few cars behind him. That seems to be Michael Rust on the inside. He's going to try and pull alongside. Versace is going to cover it off slightly, squeeze him towards the inside, and that's going to keep him safe for at least a few more turns. Tian Marais now falling behind Tommy Leray Moss there. So doing a superb job of keeping ahead, but he is starting to struggle a bit now as the back end of the previous race's pack is starting to meet up with the front end of the previous race's pack. Up and down the field, Versace is 7/10 away from Mitchell, but Mitchell might be released quite soon. He's got Tian Marais in front of him. It's going to be interesting to see how hard Marais decides to defend this. He knows he's got the champion of the Aussie V8s right behind him, but he also wants to have a little bit of fun, so you can't deny him the opportunity to really have a nice battle here with Mitchell. Mitchell just sticking out the rear a little bit, very loose on the car, so that rotation just getting the car turned in very nicely. And he's going to have the draft behind Marais in front of him, but he is a bit further back than he would want. Slightly behind him, Castellan is catching up with Rust. So Marais doing all they can to keep Mitchell at bay, but Mitchell is going to dart towards the inside, and that's a very difficult position to defend. You can't really do much unless you position your own car on the inside. You need to be careful that you don't drift towards the outside if you decide to defend on that inside line. Murray's going to stick behind Mitchell. He's going to go even deeper on the inside. Mitchell forced to run a strong defensive line. Murray very restricted there on the previous exit, so he's going to have Vasaki on his rear, knocking for an opportunity. And some hard racing here in the middle of the pack. Vasaki on the inside of Murray. Murray is going to keep him at bay. They're going to be side by side. And that's going to be Murray on the inside for the next corner, doing a superb job of defending here. And Vasaki is going to try and see if he can do a bit of a swap around. But Murray not leaving any kind of space for him to capitalize. So Murray doing a superb job here, definitely in his element. But now comes the difficult part, down the two consecutive straights. And Vasaki just making him a little bit nervous, just showing the nose. And this is where it's going to be tricky. So Murray not doing anything to break the toe, but he is running a bit closer towards the inside of the circuit. Out in front of them, Mitchell and Moss getting past one another. But Murray is just doing an absolute superb job. This is keeping Vasaki back quite a bit. But Murray is here on absolute merit, and he is making it work. Swap around from Vasaki is going to be on the inside, and this is going to be a difficult one to recover from. Murray getting pushed towards the outside, and that's going to be the overtake done. That was a hard fought for battle there. Murray doing a stellar job of defending his position. Mitchell and Moss. I think that might be Mitchell just driving away from Moss slightly. Out in front, James Crook on the rear of Leach Jr. So this is a battle for second, and a very heated one indeed. So Crook now 1.5 tenths behind Leach Jr. So that's right on the rear. One early braking zone from Leach Jr., and that's going to be Crook inside onto the rear of the car. Mistake from Leach Jr., and they're going to be side by side on the back straight. Crook might be able to pull this off before the turn even happens, and he has. So Crook now ahead of Leach Jr. He just needs to be careful that Leach doesn't come back at him and makes an attack into this first corner. But that was a very solid overtake from Crook, capitalizing on that mistake. Vasaki and Tommy Leary Moss in the battle. Moss stuck on the outside. Vasaki is going to get a nice clean overtake towards the inside, and he has been released. But Mitchell is away up the road. That's a second away from Vasaki, and he's going to be hard pressed to catch up with him. 5.5 minutes left in this race, and then that kicker of an extra lap. Moss on the outside there. Vasaki running slightly slowly through the corner, and behind us, Castellan and Michael Rust getting a swap in positions. So Castellan is going to want to come back on the inside there side by side, but Castellan very restricted there on the apex, unfortunately costing himself a bit of time. Robert Franco is now side by side with him. Oh, and that's so close to contact. Franco unfortunately taking a less than ideal line. Very, very late turn in, or way too early, I'm not exactly sure which. And he's had to fall back a little bit. Thierry Murray and Tommy Ray Moss coming together now, closer together, and this is going to be an interesting battle. Moss got past him a little bit easier early in the race, but it seems like Mireille has found his second wind and he's just chasing him down. Absolutely gunning for it at the moment. So all of the front running cars, they're in a single shot. So you can see there, Probler just turning the first corner, so he is not out of the woods by a long shot. But someone that needs to be careful now is going to be Moss. Unfortunately, I have spoken a little bit too soon. Marais loses control on the inside of the corner. That is a bit unlucky for him, and that's going to push him down the standings. But Marais fighting very hard to get where he was. Unfortunately, one small mistake, and that has cost him. You can see he's a bit disappointed with that one, and I definitely agree. He definitely gave it his absolute all. Crook now has Leach Jr. to contend with in his mirrors, and they need to be careful. They've got Van Heeren and Mitchell possibly knocking on their door if there's a small mistake. So 3 minutes left, plus that extra lap, and that extra lap might be manna from heaven for Mitchell and Versage, who are chasing down Van Heeren and Leach Jr. But Probler is looking very solid there in first position. 1.7 second lead on Crook behind him, so he's going to be very happy with that. Absolute stellar racing from all of the drivers here. Castellan now here in a bit of a MX5 sandwich, although Franco and Upton behind them a bit further away. Castellan is going to have the draft here from Rust in front of him, making Rust sweat quite profusely. He doesn't have the closing speed to really pull alongside him for the corner, but he is going to be slightly offline, try and see if he can get some momentum through the corner. And 3/10 behind him, so that is extremely close. Castellan does have a bit of pressure behind him though. He has got Franco just down the road. So he needs to get this overtake done if he's going to be held up. Now losing a bit of ground to Rust in front of him. And it seems like lots of differences in how strong the drivers are in this sector of the track. Franco is going to fancy a look on the inside, thinks better of it, but does give Castellan a bit of a squeeze there from behind. Back out in front, Leach Jr. still stuck to that rear of Crook, but Crook just not giving an inch and doing a stellar job. Their battle is costing him, however. Probler now almost 2 seconds up the road from them. So 50 seconds left. They're going down the back straight, and Peter Grobler is going to be the man that decides everything. He's going to be across that line before we even get close to the countdown timer reaching 0. So we will have 2 more laps of racing, and it's going to be a tricky one. James Crook running defensively, Leach Jr. keeping in the tow, and now has to take a similar line to Crook through that first corner. Leach right on his rear, so he's going to be fighting quite hard. Behind them, Van Heeren is also going to be coming under pressure from Mitchell in a lap's time, I would think. And Versage right on the rear of Mitchell, so that's also going to be getting very close to the end of the race. But Crook is now absolutely sweating. This extra lap that we're going to get is going to be the deciding factor for the second position on the grid, and it's going to be a hard battle. A little bit of contact there as Leach gets a nice exit out of the previous corner, but does back out. So no harm, no foul, but I think Crook might get a little bit shaken from that little bump from behind. Leach Jr. thinking of a different strategy. that might not get him held up so much at an apex. And he's looking for a weakness in Crook's armor. He's 2/10 behind him, so down the back straight he's got a very, very nice toe. He's going to try and pull alongside. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the closing speed. As soon as he pulls out of that draft, falls in back behind Crook. And now it all depends on that corner exit. Crook defensive on the inside. What's Leach going to do? He's going to go towards the outside, the side by side into the first corner. This is the last lap. Some hard racing. Crook gets past as Leach Jr. just slightly pulls ahead there before the corner. So, sorry, Crook didn't get past, he just held on to the position. But so close. Now, side by side into the corner. Leach doesn't have the speed around the outside, so he's going to tuck in behind. But absolute nail-biting stuff for Crook here at the end. And Leach making him really work for that position. Half of the lap left, so almost there at the end. Mitchell and Verstappen getting past Van Heerden. And now 5/10 between Crook and Leach Jr. I'm wondering whether Leach Jr. might be thinking about preserving his third position at the moment. He's gotten very close, but if there is slight contact, that is going to be it for both of them. So he doesn't want to ruin the races. These are good points for him. So it's all going to bend. He's stuck to the rear of Crook's car. 1/10 between them. And Crook losing it onto the grass. I'm wondering whether that might have been a spot of netcode. And there's a bit of a swap around going, so Leach Jr. thinking about stopping. That's going to be Mitchell getting past him, Fasaki getting past him. So, shock, second position at the end of the race. That's going to be Grobler, Mitchell, Fasaki, Leach Jr., Van Heerden. And I think that might have been quite a lot for the drivers. Michael Rust and Robert Franco in a battle right to the end. Ross Heeman coming across the line in a solid 11th position. Ian Upton 12th. Dave Brady 13th position. And then behind him, Van Westhuizen. Unfortunately, set behind by that spin right at the start of the race. It's a very difficult part of the race to really make that mistake. Since you've got the entirety of the grid that can come past you. And then Craig Wesley going to come in behind him. In position 15. So well done to all of the drivers. Massive congrats to all of them. It's been a very tricky track. I'm just going to make a quick note and see if I can get some of the drivers for an interview. Always a bit of an awkward thing making these notes while I'm trying to talk. I'm not a good multitasker. Okay, so I will go into the interview room and see if we can get some drivers willing to talk to us. We'll be back shortly. Right, so we're just waiting to see if some of the drivers want to come on over. It's quite a fun one for them. I think they fancy having a bit of a chat with one another. So we'll see if they come on over. But really exciting race there up until the end. And a bit of a shock finish there. That's very good points for Dennis Mitchell. Consistent second finish there at the end. They're starting to go into the waiting room, so let's pull in a few of them. So, welcome to Dylan Versace, and massive congrats to that first race win, and then the second race that you also finished in third position. I mean, that second race looked like a really rough one, fighting through that pack with Dennis Mitchell.
Yeah, I have to say, yeah, I'm sweating like a pig where I'm standing. I have to say that one of my toughest races, keeping up with Dennis in the first place. I have to say, congrats to him for that. And then, yeah, just battling through the pack, through all the back markers, just making sure that I'm in striking distance with Dennis the whole time, so he doesn't creep far away from me on the championship leaderboard. But yeah, I have to say, damn, that was fun.
Definitely agree. I think you also had a very tough fight with Tian Murray at some point. One of the guys that got promoted to the front of the grid with the reverse grid, and he was giving you one hell of a time.
Yeah, I have to say, it was like bad luck the whole time. It seemed like Dennis got all the easy passes, and then when it was my turn to pass the guys, it was like they're trying to block me in every corner, or just my bad luck, or just maybe trying to overtake them on the wrong spot. But yeah, I have to say, damn it, well done. It was damn fun.
Definitely agree. It was fun watching, and it looked like fun from our perspective. So just massive congrats. From your side, any people watching that you want to say thanks to? Any supporters that have been there for you all the way?
Well, firstly, my father, he's been supporting me from day one of the division. And then, yeah, Gran Gous, my partners from SSRL that was on the chat. Just want to say thanks to them for watching the stream and supporting you guys.
It's always an awesome thing having them, and thank you so much. Dennis, we've also got you in here. It's always fun because you can kind of just walk between the interview rooms as you please. But also, massive congrats. Very consistent finishes, although I think on that last lap, you probably weren't thinking about a second position finish right up to the end.
Yeah, that was very, very lucky. Just to see the two Jameses having an incident, and I got perfectly between them. And I think it was James Crook on the left. He tried to sort of move over and defend, but I had too much momentum. So, yeah, I was very lucky. And obviously, Dylan got past as well.
Yeah, he kind of followed you on through, but we spoke about it earlier, and you seem to kind of catch everyone by surprise and get on through quite quickly. And then the moment you got through, it seemed like the driver decided, okay, Mitchell got past, but I'm not going to let the rest of them get past that easily. And then there would be this massive battle breaking out behind you. Were you trying to capitalize on those moments, or were you just looking down the road in front of you and just gunning it as hard as possible?
It's very hard in these cars to defend and race at the same time. So as soon as you can take your race lines, you naturally pull a gap. But when you start taking a slightly different line, you lose a couple of tenths, and in these cars, it's really hard to make that up. So yeah, when you get a chance, you've really got to make the most of it. But unfortunately, yeah, I couldn't quite get to the front, but I was looking at my mirrors a little bit too often, and that would occasionally make me just run slightly wide, just to take a bit more defensive line. And yeah, in the end, it was a great race, and it's really awesome having Dylan pushing me like that towards the end.
It definitely made for some fun watching. From your side, Dennis, anyone supporting you that you want to give a shout out for?
Just to the family, all the family, they're all there, always supporting me, and to you guys that make this happen, yourself and Monet. Without you guys, it wouldn't be possible. And then obviously to all the guys that attend, thank you to everyone that attends.
Yeah, the turnout for the series has really been awesome all the way from the start. So for both of you, next race, Red Bull Ring, a strong track, Dylan, or something that's a bit new for you in the MX5?
In the MX5s, it's quite new for me, but I know the track quite well. We did a previous series there with the, and yes, so it's quite a familiar track, but yeah, I think it's going to be quite more fun with the MX5s, keeping that momentum up, like Dennis said, trying just to get that perfect line and put the best lap in. And then yeah, just want to say to Dennis, till we meet at Red Bull Ring.
Yeah, look forward to it.
And from your side, Dennis, a strong track for you with these cars, or are you going to keep it a secret until you see Dylan on the track next time?
I think my pace is okay there. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that it's good enough to compete. But I'm pretty sure I'll be sort of in the mix, whether I'm at the back of the mix or the front of the mix, I'm not sure. But also tonight, Steven Castellan was also extremely fast. You know, himself and Dylan were, for me, the hardest guys to keep up with. So I imagine they'll be faster as well.
Yeah, definitely agree. So looking forward to that. That's going to be in a week's time, if I'm correct. Thanks, Dennis and Dylan. I'm going to start signing off. So if you want to pop back to the Div 1 guys, you're welcome to do so. From
Cool,
my,
thank you.
Thanks, guys.
it's a massive pleasure. From my side, for everyone tuning in, thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to get involved, there should be a Discord link in the description below. If that's not working for you, leave a comment. We will try and pick that up on the YouTube channel. And then also, if you want to get involved with the MX5s at the last moment, I think there might still be some space in the Div2 group. So if you just want to feel what it feels like, you might be able to jump in there near the end. But we also have some other series going on. We've got some stuff in R Factor 2 that we run on Thursdays or Tuesdays. I'm not exactly sure now. I don't have it in front of me. But you can get involved with that. We've got drivers from all over, and it's always interesting to see what everyone's involved in. So feel free to involve yourself there in the Discord server. Also, remember to subscribe to the channel. It's going to give you notifications of when we've got races going on. You'll see past races pop up as they happen, and you'll also see scheduled broadcasts for the races in the future. So do you remember to subscribe to keep in touch with the races happening in that way. But yeah, thank you so much for everyone supporting, for all our regulars that have been chatting in there. I've not been able to keep up with the messages. I'm no longer reading that quickly, although I can read quickly, but I can't read that quick. Yeah, it's been awesome seeing everyone participate in their hundreds of messages over a stream. So I keep getting notifications from my streaming software. Thank you so much for everyone's support. Hope you have a lovely evening. Hope you have a lovely week. If you've not watched the F1, go and watch it now, or at least go and watch the highlights. It's been awesome. Stay off social media before you do that, though. Don't spoil it for yourself. And yeah, good luck for Monday. Hopefully it's not too blue. And we'll see you next week for some racing at the Red Bull Ring. From us here at Sim Experience South Africa, thank you so much. And hope you have a lovely evening.